Seguimos en el Mobile World Congress haciendo los paneles de entrevistas. En este caso vamos a tocar el tema de SDN y NFV y nos visita Juan Pablo de la empresa Cisco y David de ETSI, del grupo que hace los estándares para varias tecnologías, incluyendo lo que será NFV específicamente. Voy a cambiar al inglés para que ellos nos expliquen un poco cómo está este mercado y cómo lo perciben ellos y cómo está el tema de los estándares. Juan Pablo, David, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
First question, very easy, very quickly. It seems that the operators are going to be changing the way they build networks very soon because of things that are happening in the market that we don't need to explain, because probably people listening to this video, they already know. But SDN and NFV are becoming two things that are going to be key for that development. And they come with a lot of promises. I would like you to quickly and briefly tell me what's hype and what's real. So, Juan Pablo, if you want to start.
Well, for Cisco, it's real. We have a...
So there's no hype?
There is no hype.
Okay.
That is a reality right now. There is a lot of solutions that Cisco is launching. Actually, this week we launched our Evolve service platform that is going to facilitate the service provider to create and orchestrate the different services through the network. And we have already some network functions in the cloud already selling those products today. So we have SKUs, we have part numbers, and this week we are launching the cloud DVR solution as well as the virtualized packet code as well.
So this is something an operator could already deploy?
Right.
Okay.
We have customers already testing and using our virtual functions in the network already.
Okay, we'll be back with you on how they are doing that.
Sure.
The same question between hype or what we think NFV could do and what actually can do. Do you see a difference, or do you think everything being said is actually right?
NFV is a very popular word. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of hype around it. We saw it with IMS, NGN, M2M, Internet of Things. As soon as there's a technology which is globally applicable, it gets hyped. If you come back to the standards, so ETSI makes the standards, it's very important to get all the players in the same place so they can talk about the same solution and come out with a standardized solution, something that can be applicable in Europe, in the US, multi-vendor, multi-operator, and that's what ETSI is working on now. So ETSI is definitely not interested in the hype, but more in the technology and the ecosystem. Okay.
Well, in terms of the standardization, and also we can discuss this, what is being standardized? Because my understanding of NFV is essentially just to remove most of the hardware that operators are using for specific functions and just put them in hardware that's off-the-shelf servers, so they can move things around if needed and manage capacity differently and so on. When you talk about standard, what are we talking about? I mean, we're using already standardized stuff, which is our servers and so on.
For the moment, the main focus of ETSI ISG, it's not a stand. They always say it's not a standards body. They're looking at requirements, use cases, global architecture, feeding into standardized APIs on which you can then build with open source solutions. It's important just to get all the community together. So in the ISG, we have 28 global operators talking with over 50 vendors. Just bringing them together to make sure they don't duplicate the work several times. So studying 6 key use cases and the applications thereof. So it's just making sure that when we have these standardized APIs and a single reference architecture, that can be deployed in the same way by companies such as Cisco.
Okay. Do you want to add something on the standardization side, or?
No, actually, we are working on the platform that we are launched this week, the Evolve service platform. We are making sure we are open to any other vendors as well. So we are going to interoperate with different vendors that are willing to have also services virtualized in the network. What we are offering here is the orchestration part, so we will be able to talk as soon as we have the open APIs ready. Our platform is going to be ready for providing those services.
Okay. Now, the open APIs on SDN will be the part going north, as I say. Right. But what about going south? OpenFlow seems to be the de facto protocol, it seems. I don't know if you can comment on that one, but because it's outside of ETSI.
On the SDN case, we have as well several protocols already working, like OpenFlow is one of those, but also Path Computation Element Protocol, BGP, Link State, just to name a few. So there are different protocols for different functions in the orchestration on the network, but we are making sure those protocols are also part of the industry protocols that we are working on.
Okay. Any protocols on NFV that we should know about?
At the moment, we're reaching the stage where we have this single defined reference architecture, and all of the members, especially the operators, coming to us and saying we need to work with the open source community. So we've been
The open source community.
Exactly. So we're meeting with them. Last week, we had a technical meeting in Malaga. We're going to have another meeting in Japan in May, and we've been reaching out to them, and they've been coming to our meetings and saying this is how we can program solutions for you. The thing that we have to be very careful about is if we have an open source solution, it has to be implementable to an operator network on critical services. And a telecom operator has different requirements to an IT operator or a cloud operator. Lawful intercept, regulation, things like this. So it's very important that that solution is agile, that's the key word, and robust as well.
Okay. Now, in terms of the implementations, and I don't know if for NFV or SDN, both, how would operators have already massive infrastructure. And in the case, for example, of NFV, we're saying, okay, we're going to go to off-the-shelf servers, but that's not, obviously, if I have machines that are still providing money and it's cheap for me to keep using them, I'm not going to go to NFV right away. The same thing happens probably with SDN. I already have machines that do the control and data plane on their own. I'm not going to just make them dumb to gain that central control access in one place. So how do you envision operators, especially when we're talking about massive operators like Vodafone or Telefonica that have a lot of boxes, so to speak, in the network? How do you envision them migrating to an NFV environment or to an SDN environment? Perhaps you could tell us on the NFV vision.
Step by step.
Little by
Literally, bit by bit. At the moment, we're seeing there are many proof of concepts. There's many in Barcelona this week where people are coming together, taking the use cases and proving that they can work on multi-vendor solutions. That is going on publicly. Obviously, privately, the vendors are talking to the operators as well. I cannot believe that an operator will roll out a system that is not fully tested and fully interoperable and fully certified on critical services to 50,000 users. So I would say step by step. Prove it, test it, deploy it bit by bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree completely. Since we are launching the products, we need our customers to start trying and playing a little bit with the products. We get still some feedback from them, some modifications. We don't expect them to change everything from for tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're just making sure that the current platforms that we have are ready for this future and on the future of the SDN, on the controllers. With the acquisition, for example, of Cariden a couple of years ago, we are launching and making sure the Cariden is open to any vendor as well, to supporting not Cisco but other vendors as well. So this is being tested already, and this is fully tested on the previous version. Now with the controller that we are launching, the idea is to control also the paths in the network through segment routing or these kind of protocols, but also again interoperability and testing. That requires a lot of homologation and a lot of lab trials, and it will take a couple of months or even years.
But what about functions? Going to network function virtualization, are we seeing any particular functions that are more prone to be virtualized than others because of how the infrastructure is today built?
Sure. The initial use cases are, I would say, the easiest ones to achieve. I'm not going to use the word, but the killer app, or the ones that everybody wants to get into place, are the EPC, the virtual enhanced packet core. So that's where people want to go, but you cannot roll that out straight away. You've got to prove it step by step. So DNSs and firewalls and this sort of thing, and then you bring it onto mission critical solutions such as a mobile core.
Any functions that
Actually, I agree. We are launching this week also the virtual EPC, but also we have already some functions already.
But the virtual EPC sounds like a major virtualization effort. I mean,
right.
The whole packet core virtualized. I mean, it's a key component of LTE network.
Right, and actually we are making sure all the features and capabilities that we have in the product and the 5K are ready on the cloud as well. That was actually tested by ETSI. Okay. So they are making sure we are fully committed on the features on the virtualized product with the hardware that we have today. Also, we have some other services for the fixed customers like BCE, virtual CPE, for the fixed as well, virtual route reflectors that will help them to escalate the BGP network. And we are almost ready to launch the virtual BNG that is basically having the aggregation, and we have so many ideas to have like
Virtualizing everything.
virtualized CMTS, virtualized, almost all the services are going to be available on the cloud as well.
Now, final question regarding, you mentioned open source at some point, and usually when we talk to operators and you mention open source, they rather go usually or traditionally with a commercial offering from a company that can actually, where they can call if something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to open source, they are more fearful of losing that. What is your take? Am I right with this take, or do you think this is changing because of the nature of NFV and SDN, where open source might be better view than past technologies when it comes to open source? David, if you want to start.
Traditional networks, yes, you would go with a traditional vendor who would have IT capabilities. Now, as you go into virtualizing the network and having software-defined networks, the intelligence comes from software programmers. So telecom operators have to move with the traditional vendors. They're still there. They're still in ETSI y NFV. But we're seeing more and more open source companies, open source vendors. There are open source vendors who have very, very solid business cases. And they're talking to the operators and saying, we can provide similar services. So you've got this very rich ecosystem of telecom operators, traditional vendors, new vendors, and integrators, and it's all coming together. In ETSI y NFV, we have 800 people we have almost 1,000 people in the community. We have 200 companies in the community, and they're all coming together to one single standard. So that's a good sign for me.
Okay. And you are involved with the Open Daylight?
With Open Daylight, Cisco's platinum sponsor of the full project. We really believe this is the way to go as well. I mean, if the customer is willing to have our controllers, we are developing our controller. But if the customer wants to build or hire a third-party application vendor to develop a specific application for the controller, they can survive with our controller, with their controller, or both as well. So definitely committed to support the Open Daylight.
But still, it sounds like, based on my past experience covering the telecom industry, past 10 years, that doesn't sound like how a mobile operator, for example, could operate. Usually they want to have standard. They go to Ericsson or Cisco or whomever. They just implement that technology from that vendor. Something goes wrong, picks up the phone. Hey, something is going wrong. They go and fix it. When you have a community where it's just managing this in a different way, which is on the IT side has worked well, I don't see that culture on the operator side. So I don't know if that's kind of a major barrier for NFV and SDN to be implemented, rather than some of the technical areas that you could also be discussing on ETSI or within Cisco. I don't know if that's even more difficult to accomplish, changing the mindset than the other. I don't know what you think, David.
It's a part of an evolution, and maybe that's a bit of an evolution shock. When we moved from circuit switch to packet switch, when everything went over IP, IPv4, IPv6, what comes after IP? I'm sure Cisco know better than me. But you have to be more innovative. You have to be able to get to these open source communities. And the telco operators realize that the services they deploy need this innovation. So there has to be a balance between traditional and innovation. And it's a part of an evolution path.
Okay. So there's some work to do there.
Yes,
right,
definitely.
Yeah. And actually, the service providers many times wants to differentiate their service versus the other. They will need to move to a software developer community to develop a specific particular application for them, right? So that's the only way to go, instead of having a standard solution as other vendor will provide, right?
Okay. Do you think that NFV and SDN is one of the major topics within this show? Because I looked through the agenda of the Congress and the different keynotes and sessions, and I haven't seen that much of SDN and NFV. But when you talk to companies, everybody's talking about SDN and NFV.
Yeah.
Do you think that it has caught the organization a little bit like off guard? Like it has moved faster than expected?
Sure.
Just an idea.
Yeah, definitely virtualization is the word right now. We're all talking about network function virtualization at the end. That's our main topic right now with the launch of our products. Definitely virtualization is the key.
Is the key at the show?
Yeah. It's always interesting to see the technology that's not on the main agenda. And last year there were rumors of NFV. This year NFV is definitely, they're on the stands, people are doing demos, people are actually promoting it. Come back next year and I think NFV will be top of the agenda. But it's always, in Mobile World Congress, always like the one that's just off the agenda, and this year it's NFV.
Okay, there's always one topic of the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, excellent. Well, Juan Pablo, David, thank you so much for joining this panel, and good luck with the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.